Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, dear participants. I hope you've all had your full tummy full of food and you're in fine form for our next section. I hope you're already, you have an idea regarding how our next session is going to be. I'll just tell you a brief of how we'll do this. Maybe I'll pick an example and tell you. I think 101 is Anubhav, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and Anubhav is going to be paired up with Anaka, it seems, right? 105?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the mode is going to be this way. Anubhav will have to speak for the motion, that is for 1 minute. All right. And you will not get any warning bell, any prompt in between. You will just start and you will get the final bell when it's already 1 minute. Right. So after Anubhav has spoken for the motion, we will then have Anaka speaking against the motion. All right. Immediately. Right. Possibly when you're cold. So then Anaka will speak, you will have 1 minute, you will get a bell at the end of that minute, right? Now you will have your cross debate, which is like for 3 minutes, right? So Anubhav and Anaka will have the cross debate, and approximately, let's say, to get equal participation, each person will have to speak, put their argument for 30 seconds when it comes to the cross debate, okay? So Anubhav, because he stands for the motion, is going to put his argument for the first 30 seconds. Then he will pause, let Anaka have the counter argument. Then Anubhav will have it again. So finally, as ideally expected, we are supposed to have about 6 exchanges in those 3 minutes, okay? Is it clear? Is it clear? Could you just unmute any one of you and tell me if it's clear?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, later on what we'll do is turn call. We'll have a flip, wherein Anubhav, who was speaking for the motion initially, will now speak against the motion, and Anaka is going to speak for the motion. So each time we begin a debate, the person who stands for the motion is going to begin first. So in the next session, which is for Anubhav and Anaka, Anaka definitely will begin because she stands for the motion, and then Anubhav. The same procedure will repeat. You will have 1 minute each. You will still have 3 minutes of cross debate. The same procedure ends. All right. So now we have Anubhav and Anaka standing in there. And finally, you will have, because you are participants, this time the questionnaire round is completely for the participants themselves. We're not going to have any judges interference whatsoever. So what we will do is we'll say, okay, you may now pose questions for Anubhav in the chat box. So when that kind of a prompt is given, all of you can definitely give the kind of questions you want to give Anubhav, or you could definitely give both together, Anubhav and Anaka together. But just write your name, okay? Just write the name as to whom you're going to shoot the question. Like just write Anubhav and write the question. Write Anaka and write the question, okay? So all of you can put your questions, and the judges will pick one question and give each. Like for example, Anubhav would get just one question. Anaka would also get just one question, okay? And you'll get possibly just about a minute to answer it as well. Is that clear? And I think here we are going to check again. Now when Anubhav or Anaka gets a question, now that you're done with your flip and your 10 minutes debate, you don't have to take a stand. You can definitely see the question that you have received and answer it from your personal perspective. All right, as to how Anubhav would answer it or Anaka would answer it, right? So just your personal perspective of it. We are not going to stand, we're not going to adhere to the kind of stand you had in your debate. Is that clear? And so from this, we are going to check how well are you going to efficiently structure your questions, and how good is your perspective quite personally on the topic. All right. So I think it's clear. Is it clear to all of you?
Just a doubt, ma'am.
Okay.
So after speaking for and against and the flip, at the last we will have the questions, right?
Yes.
And that will be according to our own wish. We will answer for or against, right?
In fact, it's according to your personal perspective. Okay. It's your personal perspective. Okay. It's not about whether you were speaking for the motion or against the motion. It's about what you feel about this. Just very personal. Okay. All right. The question comes just towards the end, the final part of the debate, which is like after 10 minutes. Is that clear now?
Yes.
Yes. So I think we'll proceed. There's just one more thing I would like to add. Because we have an odd number here, which is 11. And as you definitely know, we have a 1-to-1 debate. I think because Anubhav is chess number 1, and possibly if he is all right with it, we will want him to kindly support the last contestant, whoever that is, possibly the odd one who stands at the end, the last chess number, would possibly come towards the end. So Anubhav, because he'll have some time, maybe if Anubhav could support that last contestant, it would be fine. But Anubhav will be judged only for the first round that he is in, because the Anubhav with Anaga is your official debate, and that is the debate for which you'll be judged. Whereas when you support the final contestant, you will not be judged, but however, your participation will definitely improve the way your partner speaks. Right? Is that clear?
Yes.
Is that okay for all of you, or would anybody want to volunteer or anything? Like, I'm happy to support the odd one out. Anybody like that? Or should it be the chess number one again?
I don't mind supporting, but then if you want to go with chess number one is also fine with me.
Okay, okay. Aisha, what is your chess number?
111.
Okay, 111. All right. Anubhav, what is your take on it? Would you want to take it because you're 101, or will you want to give it to Aisha, who was volunteering?
Is it fine with me? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so Aisha, is it fine if Anubhav does it? Because he'll get some more time, I guess. Yeah, okay, okay. Because he finishes his debate first, maybe he'll get some cool of time, right? Yeah. Yeah, is it okay? Yeah, I think it's fine. It's done. So we'll swiftly begin the session. As you know, each team will have separate topics, okay? And you are asked to keep a check on the WhatsApp group as well, because that is where you will get your topics, right, for each team, okay?
Ma'am, so can we start?
Yes, I think we can start, yeah.
Okay. So we are starting with our second section, extemporary debate. So first I call upon chess number 101 and chess number 105 on topic gender reservation is it's a fair concept. So chess number 101 will begin by speaking for the motion and 105 against. So chess number 101, your time starts now.
Gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenges of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building upon a good governance. As we know, globally, women remain vastly underrepresented in any of the government politics or in education. Only 24% of the parliamentaries are women. It's the same case as the transgenders. Transgenders are not able to represent the society. Their needs are not being questioned or answered or being heard. So it is really important that there is gender reservation so that the minorities can raise their voice ahead so that their needs can be fulfilled too. So in order to bring about inequality in all the means, it is really essential the gender reservation is given importance, and following other nations like Denmark, where transgenders are given utmost importance and their names can be changed and their gender, transgender or other gender is mentioned. Even in India, as a country, a democratic country and secular country, it is really essential and prime time that we are bringing up a concept where there is gender reservation, and it is prime time that we bring about this change by focusing on gender rather than economic.
Yes, Anubhav, yes, that is 1 minute, okay? That's 1 minute for you. Now, I would want Anaga to speak 1 minute, okay? So your time starts now.
I think gender reservations are something that we should not follow in this time, because gender reservations tend to differentiate people. Let us consider an example. Gender reservation based on religion or economic background is even acceptable. But let us consider an example. A boy from a not so happy economic background and a girl from a wealthy background. If a girl gets more support and more prominence, it is not at all fair towards the boy. So other parameters, it is okay, but for gender, I don't think it is right. The second point is, I don't think groups of people, like women or transgenders, are so much weak enough so that they have to come up only on the basis of reservation. They have their voices, they can fight it out, they have done it in the history, and presently they're continuing to do that, doing the same. So for this, I don't think gender reservations are suitable. As for considering other parameters, I support gender reservations. Thank you.
Okay, now let's start cross debate. Anubhav and Anaga, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
So shall we start?
Yeah. Okay. Cross debate is for 3 minutes, right?
Yeah. Okay, now Anubhav can start your argument.
Yes. In the concept of gender reservation, we are giving equal opportunities for everyone. So how can we think that we cannot just remove the fact that gender reservation will give opportunities to all the genders without any discrimination?
Can you repeat it? I'm not sure. Hello?
Yes.
Anubhav, if you could just repeat
I was specifying the need of gender reservation because gender reservation helps in bringing about the inequality that is being faced by different genders.
Okay. My take on that is actually the same thing I said before. Considering gender equality, I think it is the human beings or who is a component of the society who is narrowing it down. For example, if I take me, I am a woman. I don't think I'm weak enough to come forward just because I have a reservation. I can fight it out on my own. People have done it. People are doing it currently as well. For example,
The
let's
current
take
scenario
example.
is an example, right? Where we see that there is no equal participation of women. We see that even in the parliamentary or the chief ministers of the each state of the country, we are not seeing equal participation as that of the men.
Yeah. I would like to focus on the brighter side of it. Consider 10 years before, women had no rights at all, or 20 years before. There was a time when women could even vote, women could even have the right to inherit property, but that is not the case right now. Women are proving their mettle in all sectors of society, let it be education, sports, economics, everything. So I don't think there's a clear enough reservation at all.
There is even the statistics and survey proves that women are being degraded of even the basic rights of education. They're not even provided with equal amount of wages. And also taking about the situation of transgenders. Transgenders are not given equal status of that of other genders. We cannot just avoid this notion that genders are just comprising of men and women.
They are not avoiding the fact. Everything has a starting point, and a starting point is not going to be smooth. There will be ups and downs. There will be troubles. They are in an evolving state. Consider
transgender or homosexual groups is not a new concept in India. It has been existent since the existence of biology. So it is not a new concept.
Like 20 years prior, transgenders was not at all common scenario, but it is not the case today. They are coming forward, right? They're coming forward. They are, for example, in the fashion industry, in the entertainment sectors, transgenders are coming up. They're just evolving. You give it some time. 10 years before, you couldn't have said this would be the status of a woman presently. But it is not right now, right? Women have
it is more than 70 years of independence. India has gained 70 years of more than 70 years of independence. And even today, people are not independent to make their choices, to choose what sexual orientation they like to. How can we say the gender reservation is something?
I think the people of this generation are more acceptable than the people which we had over the past years. We are far more, we have a broader horizon of thinking.
Okay, your time is up.
Okay, I think now we've come to our end of the first session of the debate. Meanwhile, before we begin the flip, I would request all the other participants to kindly post their questions, if any. As we have already mentioned, just mention their names and then post the questions you want to do them just in the chat box. We are not going to answer them now, but later on, after the flip gets over, that's when we will look into it and the judges will, choose one question each for them. Okay, so now we'll have the flip round. And for the flip again, now Anakha is going to speak for the motion that gender reservation is a fair concept, and Anubhav speaks against the motion. It is not a fair concept. All right, so Anakha begins now. I hope the timer is set, coordinator.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think gender reservations is important as well, because as I mentioned before, human being is a social animal, and we are deeply influenced by the elements, the existing beliefs and the commodities that is existing in the society. So someone who is, let it be the human beings, they are trying to shun women or the transgenders as some kind of a taboo to the four walls of the house, not allowing them to socialize, explore the world. So in order to come up a support, I'm not saying that reservation is a must, it is a prime importance right now. I'm saying that it is a tool towards equality. It is like a first step ahead or a two step ahead. We can help people who are from the backer regions or who is highly remote to that particular area to come up with the system of gender reservation. Because now is the time where exploitations, violence, harassment, all sort of things are happening towards women and transgender.
Anakha, your time is up.
Next, we have Anubhav. Your time starts now.
Reservation, caste, gender, and all are like someone eating the banana and enjoying it very much, and others are stumbling upon the peel. No, reservation is not fair. And also in the basis of gender, it will only widen the gap between the equality. If men and women are considered two faces of the coins, and we are providing gender reservation, it will result in making them a minority, and this will increase the differences. If transgenders are there, we must understand, we must make the people educate instead of giving gender reservation, because gender reservation will result in bridging up the inequality and making them the minority group. We must understand, as it is the 21st century and globalization has reached its utmost phase, we must make children give education so that they can understand the value of understanding and valuing each person's interest. So giving gender reservation will only cause another problem. It is another discrimination on forefront. We must move forward with the concept of equality so that each and every person can raise their voice in their own style.
Anubhav, your time is up. Okay, now let's move on to cross debate. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Anagha?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
now it's your turn, Anagha. You can start.
Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, he told that gender equality widens the gap. How does it say so? I mean, the reservations. How does reservations widen the gap when you give importance to one? Because yeah. Sure.
A basic example we can say, we have the SC/ST or the scheduled class reservations. We see people in one area. We see that, okay, they are from the lower caste or they are from the minority. In the same way, in the gender reservation, we are making a group and minor to the majority and resulting of patriarchal society.
SC belongs to a minority community. That is not a gender-based problem. They are just a minority community, right? You're supporting minority, that's perfect and fine. No gender-based problems are arising there. Did you get my point?
Yes, Anubhav, yes.
Even women and the transgenders and other groups are considered as minorities. We must not forget the concept. So we have to change the concept. We have to bring up opportunities for everyone to perform. Just for instance, if we are saying that gender reservation is is necessary, why is not that women are in the forefront today? We have been having reservation from years, but even today they are not in the forefront. So
Yes,
gender reservation is not
Yes, now the answer.
There are many people who have come up, right? Reservations is always important, I should say, because you are just pushing people who are like brought back because of the society. Men are there, women and transgenders are slightly backward than that. You need to push them harder forward, then only they can attain equality.
Yes, Anubhav.
We must understand that reservation happens because of the privilege they are having. The people who are facing poverty or people who are not getting educated still are facing inequality. They are not getting what they deserve. So gender equality is not going to make change. What is going to make change is educating everyone according to their needs and their rights.
Yes.
Gender equality is a basic.
That is a completely different situation. Again, you are mentioning about like economic background and minority religion. Both men, women, transgenders are all included in that part.
Just as a simple example to emphasize that point. Just a simple example, considering a billionaire woman and a poor woman on the streets, how can we say that this gender inequality, that she is a woman who is sitting on the limelight and there is a woman who is naked on the streets? How can we forget that economy is not a factor of gender inequality? Economy is a major factor. It is one of the major factors.
Yes, Anagha, is economy a major factor?
Even statistics shows that from the year 2015 to the year 2016, the amount of female billionaires have increased. That's not based on any kind of research, that is purely hard work.
Yes, that is the point. Privileged group are enjoying the status of being recognized by the society, and the people who are
let us consider the example of transgenders. They are most marginalized community, second most marginalized community of the women in Indian society, we can say. Let us take the example of Joyita Mondas, who was to be appointed as a judge in Lok Adalat. She came
Your time is up.
Okay, so the time's up. Now we are going to the questions. I think a couple of them have been posted. We will want them directly to be addressed to one individual rather than giving, you need not say both Anagha and Anubhav, but it is about shooting your question to one of them. All right. So I think I'll begin from the last one that we've had. This question is to Anagha. You mentioned that just because one is a woman, she does not need any reservation because she is capable enough to come forward on her own. Why don't we have equal political representation yet? So, why is the equal political representation not a reality even now? So, how can you answer it from the gender representation perspective from the reservation? Okay, this is your personal perspective, right? Okay, personal. Yeah, you can answer now. You get 1 minute for it. Okay, your time starts now.
I personally think that equality in terms of political representation is a very heated topic to discuss because we have some of the most renowned personalities, even in this COVID crisis. Former Health Minister K.K. Shailash, she had an eminent job. So people like that should come up. But one thing or the other, something is pushing them from coming up. Sometimes it may be the social, political, economic structures that exist in the society. Many factors, lack of education, public understanding. Still, if we consider, even if in the 21st century we say it is technologically advanced, we have a broadened horizon, there are sections of societies where people believe that women is still to be confined to the four walls of the house, whose sole responsibility is to do the household work as well as take care of the family. The mentality of people haven't still completely changed from from 460 years to now. So we have a lot more to go on, and I strongly believe
Anagha, your time is up.
in the future it will be correct. Yeah.
I think the question to Anubhav could be this: doesn't reservation discredit individual merit of the genders? Doesn't, in its core, underestimate a gender minority's ability to empower themselves?
Whose question just so I can read it again?
Yeah, it's Priya Rajesh Thomas. Can you see it in the chat box? The third question. No, the third one.
Yes.
Yeah, your time begins now, Anubhav.
Anubhav, are you there?
Anubhav, are you there?
I'm audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, you are. Your time starts now, okay?
Yeah. So the question raised is about the discrete, the individual merits of the gender and having the underestimating a gender minorities. So that is the concept that I said. When we are having a gender reservation, we are going to make a group minority to the majority group, saying that they are minority and they deserve gender reservation. Instead, we must be gapping the difference, bridge the difference between this, which is creating a havoc. Instead, we are in the cross opposition collision course, like countries like Denmark, where all genders, even the transgenders, are given importance. Country like India should also come up with concepts so that gender reservation could be in a broad view. Like what can be done instead of gender reservation? That is my point of view. That is, we can provide basic education for them students in the basic level, understanding the importance how a country or a nation would grow together instead of one nation and one gender. Right? That concept is not proper. Because like a cycle having two pedals, it should be moving on to reach the economic growth.
Anubhav, your time is up.
So there we've come to the end of the first session of our debate. And make sure each time a team comes up, before we get the flip round, we'll have the questions posted. Please make your questions rather brief, okay, and to the point, and make sure you're asking that one single person, like you're referring to one of them, and then you're asking them the question. All right.
Okay, next we call upon chess number 108 and 110 on topic, has contemporary feminism transmuted itself into an allied feminism? So chess number 108, are you ready?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you can start.
Yes. So the main problem of the contemporary time is the transfusion, the change of the feminism to an allied feminism. Let's be consider the case in Delhi, where there has been an anti-rage from women itself against women going to pubs with a Hindu background. That is kind of an allied feminism we faced. So the so-called online feminism nowadays that is so much prevailing in our society is rather than a feminism, it's actually a social reform they think, but it's actually not. It's actually a deteriorative phase that should be addressed. It has been hijacked. The concept of feminism has been hijacked in many ways, like the online feminism, to be quoted. Yes, that should be addressed. And to an end, when it comes to the success rate, it is actually not the concept. The underprivileged group of India and other world who even doesn't have access to sanitary pads, who doesn't even have access to education, that should be addressed rather than elite hijacking their role and presenting their leadership.
Okay, next we have chess number 110. Selin, you can start now. Selin?
Selin, are you there? What should be done?
Ma'am, I think can we turn the code so you can say against the motion?
No, I don't think that's possible.
Can I suggest?
Yes, Jidin, go on.
Can I team up with the old one so that again it is kind of you can access me like that also, right? If that does.
Yeah, that could have been possible, Jidin, but the point is the topics are different and you got 10 minutes for preparation, but she may not have got that right now, right?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. Selin, are you there? Selin is the only solution.
Ma'am, so to inform you that she is not responding to any of the messages.
Can anyone just call her? Just contact personally, because we don't have any other solution.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Can I suggest something, ma'am, if possible?
Yeah, sure. Suggestions are always welcome, please.
Ma'am, if possible, if Jiten could wait and if Salil is not responding, he can, as you mentioned, he could pair up with the odd one out, and he can get a completely different topic at the same time. She also gets the same topic, right?
Yeah, that is possible. So maybe we could just give the third team a topic now, so they get their 10 minutes of preparation, and Jiten can definitely wait to have himself teamed up finally.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, okay, I'm fine.
So the coordinators, maybe if you could just give the third team their topic by now, so that they'll get to prepare for 10 minutes and they'll possibly get back. So meanwhile, maybe we'll have if it's okay for the coordinators, a kind of very informal discussion on what we've just had, so that we won't be idle on live. You will want a final word from the coordinators before that.
Ma'am, she is not answering the call.
Okay, in that case, will you be providing the third team with their topic right now, so that they'll be ready in 10 minutes?
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
Am I audible? Am I audible to you?
Yeah. No, audible. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could give the third team the topic. Is the third team provided with the topic?
Yeah, third team is provided with the topic, but
okay,
only 5 minutes.
Okay, all right. So we'll wait for another 5 minutes when they get back, and we'll have Jiten teamed up with the odd one. Okay, with Nandana. All right. I think it's okay with Anubhav. Yeah.
Should I give the topic now to the Jidin and the old one?
No. Jidin, we have to
let me
wait.
be last.
Yeah, Jidin will have to wait. Yeah, and then we'll have the third team coming up in 5 minutes now, and we'll still have Anubhav not coming again. Okay, because we are done with it now. We are okay with it. We still have an even number. Okay. And is it okay if we try and encourage the students?
She has messaged me and she said that she will come in 1 minute.
Right, all right.
Shall I?
Excuse. Okay. In that case, maybe we'll wait for her. Yeah. In the meanwhile, maybe to crack the silence that we have, will somebody want to? This is completely outside the, the kind of competition we'll have. This is not for judging or anything, but just to crack the silence. Will anybody of you will want to answer the question that Anubhav has just posted to Jidin? Because Anubhav had to post it just after the flip, while the flip was going on. So this question has come quite before time. So maybe we'll give this for a 1 minute talk for somebody, or maybe you could even discuss. The question is, what is your take on the so-called toxic feminism and how media has been celebrating this concept? And who says it's an accident? I call it a happy accident. So who would want to answer it? Because it's Anubhav's question. Somebody else might answer it. Is there something called toxic feminism? And yeah, do you think? Yeah, of course, Aisha, please.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask to Jiten. Like, it would be more clear if he could explain what is toxic feminism, because recently I have been viewing this concept a lot on social media, and then it's, as you told, it's a happy accident, but I think I would need, Anubhav would need to explain more, but what does he mean by this toxic feminism?
Okay. In that case, it's another, you could say, off-site discussion with Anubhav. Anubhav, what was the toxic feminism you were speaking about in a couple of seconds? Yeah.
So I was talking about this since we have seen this, the topic was really closely related to feminism. So I thought this is relevant. Actually, we have seen in social media, Instagrams and all those influencers and the toxic feminism and all those concepts, right? So my basic question is, how does it affect the feminism, right? The basic people who are feminists, or the concept of feminism. Before also, Aisha had stated one thing, that she is religious, but she believes in feminism, right? But actually the feminist concept is something beyond religion or something. So there is contradiction. So there is a whole new concept. So is it toxic feminism, or is it anyway other thing?
Yeah, everybody can join, okay? Aisha can either give a reply or somebody else can definitely. Yeah, Jidin, if he wants to.
I add on to that. See, actually, there is nothing called as a toxic feminism. It is actually when feminism is moving out of the so-called predefined manner to influence others to criticize feminism. There we call that process as toxic feminism. No one wanted to spread toxic feminism, but it actually rewards and comes in effect as toxic feminism, I see. Because, in that Pink Shadi movement, I remember that is the name about that movement. She actually wanted that feminism movement to ban women from going to pubs. But according to you, it was actually a feminist movement. But in the feminist angle, it is actually not at all feminist. It is not at all empowerment. So that is where we call that movement as toxic. It is not actually toxic feminism. It's actually a toxic act.
Okay. Has Selin come back?
Okay.
If Selin has come back...
No, she needs 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Has the third team, come in fine form? Are they ready for the debate then? Yeah. Is the 10 minutes over by now? Are the 10 minutes done?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, okay. So maybe then Aisha was beginning to say something.
I just wanted to answer to Anubhav to what he proposed.
Yeah, just a second. just a second. I would want the organizer to kindly interrupt us if they come back, when and as they come back, so that we'll stop this. This is completely informal. This is just to pass off some time. Okay. Yeah, Aisha with the concluding remarks, right?
Okay, so Anubhav said that nothing personal talk. Anubhav said that I cannot have religion and feminism go hand in hand. I never told that I am completely religious, or I never told that. That is my personal point of view. But I believe that I can, or I will be only personally following anything that I think is okay for me, is not disrupting any of my right, is not, no one is forcing me to do something that I'm not comfortable with, or, I'm living according to my life and my thing. I think I can decide for myself if I am being, forced or oppressed in my religion or thing, because if feminism is all about freedom, and I think I can decide for myself, so I believe that I'm not oppressed, and I'm not telling that my religion is perfect or anything, but I am taking a stand in which I think I have the freedom to do whatever I expect. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. I think Shalini is here. Shalini, are you there? Shalini?
Selin?
Ma'am, can I change the topic?
Apparently not.
I actually don't know about this topic.
Okay, I'm very sorry to tell you, but because it's an extraordinary debate and we are randomly allotted your topics, and I think you were given like 10 minutes to prepare. So I think that's common for everyone. I don't know how that's going to be with the extraordinary debate. I don't find there's a possibility of an exception. Is there, organizers?
No, there is no possibility for exceptions.
My co-judge, what do you think? Is there any possibility for it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
We cannot do anything.
Yeah.
So, Shalini, are you ready to speak with that topic, or you are not?
Actually, I don't know much about this topic.
Selin, just convey what you know about the topic, not all things, just anything. Like just communicate, just for the sake of the debate, just speak for it. It's not about what you say, it's about the confidence to say that. So can we proceed? Selin, are you ready?
Actually, can I have some inquiry? What is actually contemporary feminism?
You possibly know what?
Excuse me, even if Selin speaks, how can we manage another section of cross debating and flip? There's a question I have about. If she speaks, how can we go on with the cross debating and all? But she doesn't know, right? So it doesn't make sense. So.
Okay. Actually, I think this contemporary feminism has evolved into allied feminism. People started, we have three waves of feminist movements, So at the first time, what do we say?
Selin, can I offer you a solution?
Yeah.
Selin, the sad news is the topic can't be changed, and because you're not, you said you're not very happy with the topic, you don't have much to speak about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a sad thing, but maybe I think Jidin, as we had already thought, could pair up with Nandana, who is the odd one. The only solution that I can offer you is a participation here, and so possibly you can speak about feminism, that what you know, possibly for a minute, or two. Maybe we wouldn't judge it, however, or maybe we would still keep it individually, considering not your cross debate and flip rounds. But I think that is the only possible solution. What do the others think?
Okay, so I have just to say about feminism only.
Yeah. Is it okay, Agnes? What do you think can be a solution?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Let's go with that.
Yeah. So I think Selin, we'll definitely judge you, but that's not as a team, but as an individual person. All that you have to speak about feminism for 2 minutes probably. And Jidin, we'll get you paired up with Nandana with another topic. Okay. So I think.
Yeah, sure. No worries. Yeah.
Okay. So Jidin can wait, and Selin, yes, you may speak about 2 minutes. All that you have to about feminism in general. Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Marks. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Then you can pick. Yeah, your time starts now.
Okay, feminism is a range of social movement and political movement and have different ideologies. It is mainly its main aim is to have establish equality in sexes in both political, economical, and personal perspective. There are different stereotypes. There are different movements for this. Feminist movement include the campaign for women's right to vote, hold public offices, work, earn equal pay, own property, achieve education, etc. And right to have equal rights in marriage, marital leave, etc. It is also to protect women and girls from sexual harassment, domestic violences, etc. Feminism is always been played a crucial role for women, so that women can also recognize their rights for their property in public places. And feminism doesn't mean only that it's only for women. It is also for men to have equal rights. And that's all.
Yeah, thank you, Sel. Thank you. Yeah. We proceed to the next team, the third one. Moderators.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can.
ma'am. Next, we call upon the chess number 111 and 113 on topic. Has the Me Too campaign broken silence and won wars? So, chess number 111 ready?
Yes.
Yeah, you can start.
So good afternoon, everybody. The Me Too movement is a very famous and very known movement to all of us. It was actually began in October 2006 by Thara Burakane when she used to use this term, but it gains a lot of importance when she was used it as a hashtag in October 2017. It was used to bring about attention about the sexual violence and assault that was faced by women in workforces, mainly entertainment sectors, and many more. The WHO have said that 1 out of 3 of all women is expected to face such assault or violences sexually. And the Me Too movement has gained as the confidence for a lot of women to speak about the situations that they were happening, because previously it was seen as a shame or a taboo to speak about the incidents that they have happened to them. It have given them instance to come together and support the victim. And female who have survived the sexual violences, they have been speaking about their experience and educating.
Aisha, your time is up.
Next, we have the chess number 113.
Okay. So, can I start?
Yeah, you can start now.
Good afternoon. This Me Too movement is a rallying cry for women all over the globe, and it's just a mere tool for raising allegations against men. The sheer cascade of hashtag is being filling up one's social media, but it hopefully requires careful introspection because it can be used for fulfilling personal grudges and taint the reputation of a person without actual judgment, because any person can raise an allegation, and mostly it revolves around celebrities and famous personalities so that their reputation can be tainted. Now, if you are introspecting at the Me Too movement, it has not aided in breaking the silence, but has made women more vulnerable because women feel unsupported and ultimately lose faith in the legislation and the ability of our law enforcement to help them when they need. And it's basically about raising all the allegations. And it, while looking on a global perspective, it has not helped women to win wars against sexual abuse because it's basically a hashtag that is being circulated via social media platforms. So one might require adequate social
Your time
media.
is up, Anu.
Thank you.
Okay, now can we start the cross debate? Aisha, your mic is muted.
Yeah, sorry. So I have to start the first question, right?
Yeah, you have.
Okay, so I would like to ask that you told that this Me Too movement has brought about a lot of allegations and they have made vulnerable. So would you say that women have been only made vulnerable and not even a small section, not a small section, in fact, a huge section haven't been promoted or encouraged to speak about the violence or the assault or the trauma that they had to face through? Was it just vulnerability for women?
I'd like to counter your point by stating that women have not been encouraged to speak up just because of the Me Too movement. There are many sections or possibilities by which we could encourage them to speak up. Actually, the one thing that we have to provide them is support. Most of the people who are scrolling down through social media, reading all these campaigns are just finding a pleasure or spending their time reading this. They are not providing support to the victim.
We have to stop. Now Aisha should speak on.
Yeah. So who should ask? Anu, right?
No, Aisha, this is like you're continuing, so you can place your next argument. Okay.
So you're telling, okay, just because some people, just a small section of people, maybe all the sexist men out there, thinks that they can shame or claim shame or victim blame women for the victim they have faced. Because see, you see a person that is walking, a man, let's take man. A man is walking on the streets at night and he has been attacked. He has been shot or he has been stabbed by a knife. You will not go and ask him, or you will not go and make him feel vulnerable telling that, oh, you went out at night, that's why you are doing this. That we feel it as inappropriate. But when it is in cyberbullying, we think that it makes the person vulnerable. So such moments should be blamed. Don't you think they should take appropriate actions to stop such shaming and blaming?
Okay. I'd like to continue from what you just said. We should take appropriate actions to stop them. By posting all these things on the social media, they might be having a trauma that whole of the world is inflicting upon them. All these issues like sexual abuse, we have rules and regulations for disclosing sexual abuse to the concerned legislative persons under close privacy. So there is no need to put out these allegations on social media. So they are becoming more vulnerable, and in fact we should focus more.
You just told one of the points you made out that it made us clear that the legislation does not have proper legal framework when it comes to sexual assault or violence. So you're telling that still there is, we can move legally, but at the same time, it's like we don't have proper legal framework, but we can move legally. How is that even? It is very much contradictory. Even when people are speaking in public spaces.
Anu can answer. Yes, Anu can answer. Yeah, and we finish this with this.
There are no legislative measures to counter all these threats that they are being faced. I stated that there are measures. Currently, if a person speaks out that he or she has faced the sexual assault, there are measures in this country right now that demands them the need they want. The police stations or the legislative case. We have heard about incidents where a jury hears the statement of a victim under closed rooms.
Okay, time up. Time up, Anu.
Yes, that's time up. Now we go for the turn code, and this is the moment where you'll get questions in the chat box. And now we'll have Anu speaking for the motion, and we'll have Aisha speaking against the motion. So we begin the 1 minute with Anu. Your time starts now.
Okay. The Sustainable Development Goal, the fifth goal that speaks on gender equality and calling out sexist behavior is at the heart of the Me Too movement. The movement have been successful in pushing our urban societies to introspect the value system which we have built upon, where it is normal to harass women sexually by using their professional positions. The vulnerabilities of the women, her weakness are duly exploited to get sexual advantages, and this is being targeted or being spoken out by the Me Too movement. The movement is challenging to all those attitudes that enforce a culture of silence. By speaking out, a woman can raise arguments against her sexual predators and would be a gain stride towards a more gender neutral society. So I firmly state that Me Too movement has helped in breaking silences and creating a raging cry against the sexual abuses. Thank you.
Yes. Now, Aisha, your time starts now.
Me Too movement is all about empowering women to speak about the assault or sexual assault and violence that they have been faced. But how many of us know that now after such moments are coming into fact, around 20% of the cases are being false accusation where there are not proper proofs. Also, there are now companies who are feeling scared to employ women because they think they will be faced to such assault and affecting their companies. This is actually doing the opposite of empowering women. They're just making more job insecurity for women. Women are not being employed, and also, more importantly, even men doesn't still know what they should and what they shouldn't know. Before Me Too movement, I think it's proper to give sex education and proper basic manners to other people to teach what to do and what not to do.
Aisha, your time is up.
Okay, so to begin with my opponent's argument,
just a minute. You'll get a prompt. You'll get a prompt before it begins. However, you will have the close debate happening now. Definitely, Anu's is the first chance because she's speaking for the motion. Yeah. If the timer is fine, yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, ma'am.
So Me Too movement is not putting men into confusion like what they should do and what they mustn't. It is creating awareness about sexual violence and sexual assault. Now we know that the sexual abuse in the workspace and the discrimination in the workspace is increasing. So due to this movement, it is actually helping women to speak out the assaults they faced in the workspace, and it is creating a more safer environment for all the people.
Actually, at this moment, there has been research and studies brought out by, if I'm not wrong, Harvard University that says that men still doesn't know what they're doing is being. Like now there is a reluctance of engagement of male co-workers with their female co-workers because they think just going there and speaking to the person is make them file a Me Too or a sexual assault case. So if the people are taught how to behave and how not to behave rather than bringing importance to this issue or along with this issue, I think we would have given something
now
out of
Anu
it.
can speak.
Okay, so we are a progressive human race who have successfully come far so out in history. Man is an intellectual human being who has capabilities and reasonings of his own. He does not, he must not be doubted by some Me Too movement questioning his own interactions or behavior with his co-workers or with other fellow beings. A person must know how to behave respectfully in a scenario or in a
A person should, yes, that is how humans are supposed to be. That is how humans should behave to their fellow counterpart. They should treat them with respect. But see, the sexual violences and assaults are happening because they cannot respect another person's boundary. See, the importance of the concept consent came into more attention when this Me Too movement came. Before that, the concept of consent was just like a Blair thing or not much debated. So such an important concept was still hidden behind.
Aisha, you can continue.
Thank you, my dear opponent, for stating my point. You said that the concept of consent came came into discussion when Me Too movement came. See, Me Too movement is for important discussion that Me Too movement has opened avenues for consensual discussion. People know what to now what consent means and it does not. So it is in fact creating sexual awareness among people. And now we are in the 21st century where everybody has access to social media or technologically advanced platforms. If we have
if the consensual debate or if the consensual process is brought out by Me Too is happening very well, why are there still unsolicited genitalia pictures have been sent to be random women's? Why are there being slut shaming and all such of kinds happening in social media if consensual things are happening? See, I'm not telling Me Too movement is something wrong, but it has not been implemented properly.
We'll just give Anu the final line as well, because the question was there from Aisha. You could have the argument coming from Anu.
That's another aspect of the story that's not completely related with Me Too movement. Even before Me Too movement came into being, there were issues of cyber crimes being reported like this. That's a part and parcel of technology being advanced. But in fact, Me Too movement is providing an opportunity for women to speak out injustice that is being done to them.
Yeah, so that's the end of the debate. Beautiful one.
Okay, now let's.
So next we have the questions from the other the participants who have asked. So over to judges.
I think I would want my co-judge to kindly.
Okay, so okay, thank you, Aisha and Anu. That was a perfect debate. So now it's time to answer the questions from other participants. So I think there is a question from Jitin that how you take the fact that more than 80% of reported Me Too cases were genuine and taken to court. So he's just posing a question that does the Me Too campaign platform is just a mere allegation platform? And there is a similar question from I think Anubhav has posed a similar question. Me Too campaign and the fake and the stories are made up. So how can you answer that question?
Excuse me, ma'am.
I think
he has stated the fact that
I think the question has to be to Anu, right? The question
to Anu. Yeah, the question is to Anu.
Okay, so the question is like,
how can you deny the fact that more than 80% of the reported cases were taken to court? So how can you deny that fact? That is the question.
Okay, so how can we deny the fact that more than 80% of the cases reported via Me Too is fake? Is that the question?
Anu, you can just look into the chat box and you find the question there.
You can
you just see it there, or you can just check it there, because maybe it's,
the question is from Jitin. Jitin,
you see it? How you take the fact that more than 80% of the reported Me Too cases were genuine and taken to court? Is it a mere allegation platform?
Okay.
Yeah. So can we just say? Can we just say that the Me Too is merely an allegation platform, because he says about 80% of the reported cases were true, were genuine. So it was breaking silence. Yeah, your time starts now. Yeah.
And from my perspective, right? So I don't believe that 80% of the Me Too platform is an allegation platform, because it is providing an opportunity for women who have faced sexual violence to speak up. And there will be very less chances of cases being fake, because a person wouldn't want to just come up on social media and open up to others that he or she that she has faced the sexual assault. That is there is nothing for them to gain out of life. And moreover, it is like the need of the hour, because people can open up issues that they have faced of sexual violence, and the legislation can act upon them, and so that they are getting speedy justice.
Okay, thank you, Anu. And Aisha, you can answer the question posed by Nandana, the final question, the last one.
Can you read it and answer? Posting and abuse publicly on social media brings the equivalent result that a person must have got if she had approached our judicial system.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, answering this question needs to be taken on a wider aspect because it has a lot of things. First of all, posting an abuse publicly brings out, a chance about truly showing what a person really is. Okay. Because when the first Indian Me Too case was charged, what the victim got back was a 41-page defaming case. But later it was proved that her case was valid and justice was served, I hope. And then, she had, if she approached her judicial system, what is the maximum a judicial system can do? Nirbhaya case was one of the, most horrific rape or sexual assault case that we have seen in our country. It took 8 years for the justice to be served. I personally believe that justice denied is justice delayed is a justice denied. Okay, 8 years. See, maybe posting on publicly would give them more.
Aisha, your time is up.
Yeah, more.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. So that's all about this session. Thank you both.
Okay, next we have. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
We'll proceed.
Next we have. Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Next we have the chess number 114 and 115 on topic is death penalty a solution for rape cases. So chess number 114, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, so good afternoon, respected judges, committee organizers, and fellow participants, and my honorable opponent. I'm here to talk for the motion that death penalty is suitable for rape cases. The first point that I would like to present is that death penalty is a major deterrent for rape cases. And the second thing is costs and procedures. So there's a lot of costs that goes into a criminal being indicted and then in prison for a long time. It is, and the government has to take in a lot of charges and a lot of costs associated with keeping a fugitive in prison. And this is actually the taxpayer paying for a criminal. The third thing is rape cases of minors. So that I think we can all agree without this thing requires the death penalty.
Priya, your time is up.
So next we have the chess number 115. Chess number 115. Are you ready?
Muted, it seems, Rose. You're not audible. No.
Rose, are you there?
Yeah, you can rejoin.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
I'm very sorry for the delay. There's some network issues I was having. Okay. May I begin now?
Yes, you may begin now.
Thank you. The logic of awarding death penalty to rapists is based on the belief that rape is a fate worse than death. Patriarchal notions of honor lead us to believe that rape is the worst thing that can happen to a woman. And there is a need to strongly challenge this stereotype that the destroyed woman who loses her honor and who has no place in the society after she has been sexually assaulted. We believe that rape is a tool of patriarchy and act of violence and has nothing to do with morality, character, or behavior. This is something we should go against. The Article 21 of the Constitution of India grants to every person their right to live, and the death penalty for a crime like rape is not the effective deterrent, as there are many other alternatives like rigorous imprisonment and such. And in the present scenario, there are circumstances where many cases have arisen. They are wrongly accused or impersonating the actual.
Rose time's up. It's been
may I
1 minute.
conclude with one sentence, please?
Yeah, one sentence. Yeah.
And I'd rather the person suffer a death rather than ending it for once and all. And so I am against this death penalty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Now, can we start our cross debate?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Rose, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So you talked
Priya, you
about
can start.
Okay, thank you. You talked about rigorous imprisonment. So how does rigorous imprisonment help in removing the deep-rooted roots of patriarchy or the patriarchal violence? How does that help? How does that help? How is that a solution?
No, the reason I mentioned this patriarchy is that in the society that we live in, women is supposed to have lost all the dignity to live if in the case she is raped. That is the reason why I pointed out the patriarchy. And what is your question again?
You were talking about rigorous imprisonment.
About rigorous imprisonment. Rigorous imprisonment is an effective deterrent to death penalty because the person will be
Priya can answer. You can continue.
Okay. So basically, my point would be that isn't it because men have a greater incentive to not lose their lives to rape cases, because usually they are the sole economic factor on where their family relies on. So that would be a bigger incentive to avoid getting death penalty rather than a rigorous imprisonment, and then they would in the future be released at some point in the future, right?
How is the death of the rapist going to be advantageous to the victim's family in any way? The justice, the death of a person is never a solution for as a relief for the victim, right?
So this removing rape culture is not just relief to the victim. Relief to the victim can be given by many other means. It can be given through the governmental means. There are many other ways to do that. But this is more of giving a message to society, or the message to patriarchal culture that this cannot be tolerated anymore. And this is taking away the right to live without violence. Is equivalent.
But there is this thing that's we all look up to the judiciary, and the law cannot add to the personal feelings of the person. There are certain procedures that is to be followed while giving the capital punishment. It is at the end of this thing that a death penalty can be given, and when there exists an effective alternate remedy, we are not supposed to go for it unless it is completely necessary.
Yeah, that is the rarest of rare cases. Is what
if in the case that they are falsely accused or
rarest of rare cases is when the judiciary does give out the capital punishment. So, but still that has been a major deterrent, because rape in the ancient times, it used to be, not ancient times, I would say in the postmodern time, pre-modern times, it used to be something that was just a casual thing, a casual tribal sort of thing that they would do, zin, or taking away the honor of land or of a lady. That was majorly what
there are a lot of instances where the person has been wrongly accused, and due to their weak economic standing, they were not able to appoint a good lawyer to advocate for them, and what if in that case they lose their life for something they didn't do?
Time is up.
Yeah. So the debate part of it is done.
So next we will be having turncoat. So chess number 115. Are you ready?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you can start now.
Again, the Article 21 of the Constitution of India grants to every person right to life along with dignity. And in the patriarchal society that we live in, a girl is undermined because if according to some social standards that she should live with dignity, and the rape in certain cases even lead to murder. And the IPC 302 of the Constitution of India offers punishment to the punishments as a death penalty in case of murder, or whoever commits murder shall be punished with death. That is there in the law, and whoever thinks that they have the right to take a life of another person does not deserve to live. And that is my take. And death penalty is the current measure, is the right measure against rapists. And that is my take on this thing. And the larger society who wants justice for the victim is, it is actually a threat, a reminder to other people who has same thing in mind.
So next, chess number 114.
Okay. I would like
you
to
can start now.
Talk against the motion. So rape should not be equivalent to a death penalty, because one thing is less reporting. So basically, in most cases of rape, the victim and the abuser know each other. So there is a chance of less reporting because of the looming of a death sentence over the entire case. There is a moral blackmailing there. So that reduces the chance of reduces the chances of reporting. Second thing is these criminal laws, these tough criminal laws as we call them, they lead to the overrepresentation of SC and ST groups in the jails and to the death penalty as well. And there's more chance of brutal murder when there is a chance of death on the other line, because once you rape a person and then you know that death is waiting for you, you will mutilate them to an extent that
your time is up.
So that they don't identify you.
So can we go on to the cross?
My worthy opponent suggested that the reason that the accused and the victim might know each other would complicate the things. No, the one question I'd like to ask you is that are they even family, or does they even deserve the justice that if they think that they can take advantage of their position?
No, it's not about if you think they're worthy of being family. It's about them. And data shows.
And if they don't stand up for themselves, where is justice there?
I'll just finish my sentence. Thank you. It's because of the paternal bonds. We are a very family-oriented society, as you know. So the culture restricts women and morally polices them from reporting their uncles, their fathers who raped them. So that under-reporting happens because of this looming threat of death sentence, the death solution for one size fits all sort of approach to rapes.
A person who thinks that they can take a life of another, or the dignity to live of another, it does not deserve to live. That is the whole point here. And the minute factor that they are a family or the accused means that we have to stand up for them, stand up for ourselves, right?
Even feminists in India advocate against the fact of death penalty for rapists, because they believe that dignity is not linked to sexuality or honor. Dignity to live continues even after you're raped. You have dignity. That dignity is still with you because it is inherent as a human being. You still have dignity. Doesn't mean a man raping you does not remove that inherent dignity from you. So that does not.
Okay, Rose, you can continue.
The definition of dignity in this particular matter is not the definition of dignity related to patriarchal standards. Okay, the dignity, the accused, the victim is sexually assaulted. Okay, she is physically abused or he is physically abused, which is not right. It is not about the dignity that the societal constraints is built up. Right.
I didn't get your question, the last part.
You were talking that dignity is not a factor that is to be considered when the patriarchal standards is concerned. I was not talking about the patriarchal standards. It's a dignity as a person. She is physically abused and sexually assaulted, and she deserves justice. It is like a reminder to other people that if they do the same thing, they'll be risking their life.
Priya, it's your turn.
Justice comes in many ways other than death. Justice is defined in every court case. We see justice being defined in various perspectives. So this woman has to continue to live, right, after without, as you say, her dignity.
Okay, time is up.
But so the criminals should as well continue their life in the remembrance that they have committed a crime like this and continue their sentence in jail. Thank you, Honorable.
Okay, now we have the questions from the audience. So over to you, judges.
Oh, Judge, could you please give us the questions?
Okay. So for Priya, you can answer the final question posed by Aisha. Can you read the question, Priya?
There has been recent.
Am I audible to you?
Yeah, you're audible. Shall I continue? There has been recent judgments by Supreme Courts in our country asking the rapist to marry the victim. Such statements are made by the judiciary. How do you think that a judiciary that brings such statements would bring justice to the victim and not encourage such assault? So this is called anecdotal evidences. This is just one off the bat. Mostly we can see the judiciary is in stand for supporting the rights of the victim and bringing justice to the victim. It could be a one-off case that such kinds of things happens. And when these kinds of things happen, they're brought to the limelight so much that usually the judiciary or the civil court that has brought out such a statement brings it back, or it is nullified by the Supreme Court or the High Court.
Okay, thank you, Priya. And Rose, you can answer the question of.
But ma'am, I guess there are some issues with my network. I can't see any questions. All I see is a blank screen.
Okay. So can I read it for you?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. That would be a great help.
Okay. So the question from Anaga was: even the victim had right to life, rape cases leading to death. Don't you think the attacker deserves the same? Considering the Nirbhaya case, the minor among the group was the one who assaulted her the most. With such extreme measures, won't the future generation turn back from attacking others?
Ma'am,
the question is simple. Don't you think the attacker deserves the same? Even the victim had right to life. Don't you think even the attacker deserves the same? Even the one who has assaulted the victim had the right to life. So that's the question from Anaga. So what is your take on this?
Obviously, madam, I'd like to go with her because as the law suggests, at the end of the day, it is a law that gives the judgment, and it's a court that decides the punishment. And according to the provisions of the Indian Penal Code, we have provisions to subject a person or the accused to death by IPC 302 in case if he caused murder. But although the victim has the right to live. There is another aspect that the right to live, the rights of one person cannot be equated with the right of another person too. So there are two points of view to the same question. One that yes, the accused deserved to die because he took the life of another person, and second, no, the accused does not deserve to die because there are effective alternatives as well.
Okay, I think that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Next we have, so we are starting with the next pair. Next we have the chess number 116 and 117 on the topic, is India a gender-friendly space? So chess number 116, are you ready? Saina Fatima?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, you can start now.
So I got the topic, is India a gender-friendly space? Yes, it is, because we have reservation for protecting women and LGBTQ plus whoever oppressed is getting reservation here. So I think it's a very good privilege for them, and it's a very good space. It will give a very good space for them.
Shall I?
Okay, Niti, you can speak.
Okay.
Oh, one second. May I connect it? Can you please wait for 1 minute?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, you can continue.
Okay. So from my side, I wanted to say that yes, India was a gender-friendly society because during ancient periods there were people with who were genderqueer or anything, or who had different sexual orientation that is now considered as against the law of the nature. All those things used to be considered as normal, and people used to accept it the way it was. But for in the recent times, when the Britishers banned all these kinds of stuff, and the LGBTQ community suffered a lot. Even from the ancient period itself, women were raped and murdered. They followed practices like sati and all that kind of stuff. Even today, women chose to stay indoors because they are not safe outside. So the same.
Your time up, Nidhi.
Coming to LGBTQ plus community, I think they have got.
Saina, just a moment. Yeah, you'll get a prompt to begin. Okay. Yeah.
So now we can start our cross debate. So are you both ready? Nidhi, are you ready?
Nidhi, are you ready? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So shall we start?
Yeah.
Okay, Saina, you can start.
I should say for the topic, no?
Yeah, you should first speak for the motion that India is a gender-friendly space. Yeah.
So coming to LGBTQ plus community, we Indians all are trying to understand them nowadays, and we know that latest Justice Anand Venkatesh occurred himself to learn about same-sex marriages when lesbian couples filed a case for their marriage, and it's very amazing action by him, and he ordered himself to attend an educational session for it.
Okay, Nidhi, now you can start.
Okay, so what I want to say is, in in Kerala, since I'm a Malayali, I am speaking about Kerala. So in Kerala itself, it is estimated that nearly 25,000 plus minimum transgender people reside in Kerala. So I want to ask you a question. How many of the how many transgenders do we know personally? They're like they're in the society, but they are unknown to us. Why do we face such a situation? It's just because we they fear that we might react in a negative way, and when they overcome this fear and face in the challenges, we treat them very inappropriately. We don't give them enough chance.
Yes, it is what?
Continue,
It's not mandatory to disclose their sex or gender to everyone. So I personally know one or two, but I know more men or other sex, other gender persons. But it's not a matter here. Now everyone is trying to understand them and everyone is supporting them, and for example we have anti sports bill for trans persons now, and there are 15% reservation in private international MNCs for the
Nidhi, you can start.
Side.
Okay, yes, I accept that there are reservations and stuff, but how many of them are coming out? They don't come out because of the reason that they are unsafe. Similar is the case for women. They lack the kind of freedom that most men get, and they always hide their talents, hide their emotions and feelings and everything inside within themselves, and they don't get a chance to express how they feel. So that's my point.
I will strongly oppose it because I'm taking her name. But in Instagram, there are many models who is trans people and women who is coming forward and showing up their talents. There are many platforms which
Okay, Sana, it's time up.
Okay.
Okay, now we will be having a turn code. So, chess number 117. Are you ready? Nithi?
Yes, I'm ready. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
you
ready.
can. Yeah, you can start now.
Sorry, what do I have to do?
Nidhi, you have to speak for the motion because it's turn code. You have to speak just the opposite. Yeah, for 1 minute, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now itself, when we are speaking about is gender a friendly space in India, so I would like to say yes, because India is developing an attitude that is more friendly to the people of different genders. We now have a Pride Month. We now have Pride Weeks, Pride Parade, and all that kind of stuff. So we are promoting gender equality, but there are at times where we fall back, but still we are trying our level best to compete with other nations for gender rights.
Okay,
Yes.
LGBTQ plus community, you're talking about that. So they are being shamed to live here because of the social constructs, or they are born out normally, but they are being forced to be abnormal by the society, social constructs, etc. And I will say an example where India is not a free space for gender equality. That is UP Manisha's case. She is the one who was the victim, and she was scapegoated. She was blamed for what the accused was done. She was raped, and all the even her family members all was saying. The authorities, Yogi Adityanath sir, everyone was scapegoating her and blaming her on her. And I think you know how brutally she was being killed.
Time up.
Time is up.
So can we go
Okay.
Okay, now
We go for a cross debate now. So Nidhi places his first argument, okay, in favor of the motion now. All right.
Nidhi, you can start.
So, okay. So is gender friendly space. Now there are a lot of LGBTQ community groups. Like in Kerala, it's a Queerla. It's something that is growing very great. So India is supporting all the LGBTQ communities and the rest in some way or the other. But why are not the LGBTQ community people not coming out? They're ready to help them in every aspect, but they are lot of them are not coming out, which is the reason why they are suffering. All themselves are low.
Saina, it's your turn.
I'm opposing this, right?
Yeah, you are.
I was not clear with his argument because some network issue interrupted me.
Okay, I'll say it again.
Nidhi,
So,
just briefly, in a sentence, just briefly shoot the argument. Just briefly.
Okay, in Kerala, why are not in Kerala? In India, why aren't people coming out so that the community centers could approach them and try to help them and bring out a change? Why don't people get that point? Why can't they come out?
Saina, you can.
They were oppressed in a time, but it's not now. It's not like that. They are coming in front, and they are being shamed for what they are and who they are, and so. They are in workplaces. Even they are not getting good education or in education, in workplace, everywhere in society.
Okay, Nidhi, you can continue.
Okay, I accept that, but the thing is that there are many new laws regarding the transgender and LGBTQ community that were proposed by the Supreme Court, and as I've said, there are many community centers that support and encourage these LGBTQ people, and which also gives them counseling kind of therapy sessions to make them believe that they're normal. Why aren't people being a part of this?
Yes, I think the point is the government provides a lot of laws and community centers for the upliftment of the gender community. So India definitely is a gender-friendly statement. That's what Nidhi says. So how can you counter it?
India, they are, okay.
I think we'll finish off when Saina says a word. Is it clear now?
Yeah, now.
Yeah. Would you like to answer the argument? Would you like to give a counter argument?
The transgenders, they are being blamed, or they are being shamed of what they are and who they are, as I told earlier, and we are aware of backlashing and all, and they are being scapegoated, and
Saina, I think you can continue. Is it okay? Can you hear us?
yes, I can hear.
Yeah. Would you briefly answer? Maybe in 20 seconds.
They are being blamed and they are being shamed for what they are and who they are. They are not having an opportunity to live here with dignity, and that's it.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
And definitely, I think you are aware of many cases, Kerala ambulance case, UP, many cases like Manisha's and everything.
Yeah, yes, okay. So I think we've come to the end of the debate and we might soon proceed into the question. Okay. So I think the first question to Nidhi could be this. Nidhi, if you can see the question in the chat box, but I might read it. Most of the religious scriptures followed and even medical books are transphobic and state transsexual orientation as an illness. In this context, where a large section of the population follow theses and have access to these, how can you state that the society is gender friendly? So I think Anu has told us or asked us asked Nidhi about the fact that medical books, possibly the authentic books, as well as the religious scriptures, will want to show transsexual orientation as something quite unnatural, and it seems to develop a kind of transphobia. So when a large section of the population have an access to such kind of research papers or such thesis, how do you really believe that India is a gender friendly country? Yeah, you have 30 seconds to answer.
Thank you for giving me this question. Because I'm studying on a religious course and psychology. So the first thing is religious scriptures that are written by mundane scholars say that women are of lower level and they are transphobic, things like that. But in Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, like that, the books that were thought to be written or said by God himself. So in that they are saying, view everyone with equality, view everyone with equal vision. Don't categorize them as humans, dogs, animals, men, women, transgender, nothing.
Your time is up.
Okay, Nidhi. So you mean to say that we'll need to definitely stop looking into such things, right?
Yes, I definitely say in case of medication, it's being revised. You can check on the latest versions.
Definitely. Okay, that looks like a nice answer. Now, Sena, I think I might want you to answer a question. Most of them were aimed at Nidhi, it seems. A question is given to you from Jidin. In India, there is not even a basic gender-neutral washroom. Still, do you think India is a free space, is a gender-free space? In case you don't believe it that way, what do you think can be a couple of changes that we can bring about? Even in the case of the basic necessities like washrooms. Yeah. You have 30 seconds.
I think it's our new laws are bringing up the oppressed one, and India is a developing country, and this will too be developed. I hope and I pray for it because they should given the same right as that all enjoy, men, women, and all enjoy in our society. And even we are talking about reservation. There are also reservation men, women, and others. There is not a specification or anything. That others itself means that it's not a gender-spaced country. So this should be changed.
Thank you, Saina.
Okay, next we have the last pair, chess number 118 and 108. Topic, pro-choice or pro-life, does women have right over their womb? So chess number 118, are you ready?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you can start now.
Yes. So, pro-choice or pro-life, is it a choice of women? Of course it is. If a woman want to get pregnant, let her be. If a woman want to abort, let her be. Who else? If a woman do not want to get pregnant, who are we to say to her that you should not or you should be? In Kerala itself or in south part of India, it's a common phrase. Even after marriage, 1 month after or 2 months after, it's a discussion that why are you not getting pregnant? How absurd it is! If she doesn't want to get pregnant, who are you to question her? If again, it may be it is biological to get pregnant, and if the parents don't want the baby or the fetus, just it's their right to get aborted. Who are we to engage in them? See, let's consider the fact, even if the baby is born, how is its life? It's gone to be really miserable, and does the people who is against abortion take care of it? Absolutely not. Therefore, I do firmly begin that and see that abortion and pregnancy are both in the hands of the women who are responsible, and we should not consider and we should not impose our freedom of judgment to it.
Jiten, your time is up.
So we have next chess number 118.
Can I start?
Yeah, you can.
First of all, a fetus is a human life form. It has its own right to live. And it's medically proven that a fetus can feel pain just like a born baby. And also, we should not give all the rights to the woman. Even the baby's father have wished to raise a child. So his opinion should also be given its own importance. A woman should not be given, because a baby's right is equally on both the parents. So a father's responsibility should also be taken into account. And abortion is a very complicated procedure. It can cause mental as well as physical traumas. Like it may lead to death, breast cancer, etc. In a mental way, it may lead to suicidal thoughts, drug abuse, then sexual dysfunction, etc. And if you don't want to give birth to a child, if you don't want to raise a child in your society, there are so many baby hatches the government has provided. You can leave the baby. There are so many people out there who are ready to adopt children.
Nandana, your time is up. So are you both ready for the cross debate?
Yeah. Yes.
So it's Jiten, you can start first.
So let me first ask you, who you give more importance, life of fetus or life of a mother? That you have to answer first. The next one, the abortion in the first trimester is absolutely legal and medically permissible. How do you handle that? The so-called etc. don't count in the first trimester. And again, it depends upon the woman who comes with the etc. Even if she goes into drug abuse, it's her choice, right? Who are we to engage and we say, how are we to pathologize with her that, oh, she went into drug abuse because she had an abortion? No, it's not because of that. It is just because she doesn't get a social support from her parents and her husband because she went to an abortion. That is the reason. That is the source.
Yes, Nandana, yes.
Okay, Nandana, you can continue.
See, the fetus has its own right to live. It's just as any other human being. Abortion can cause traumas to the parent itself more than giving birth. So it's a baby has the life to live. It should be given its chance. And if you don't want to raise a child, you can really go approach a baby hatch or somebody who can adopt children. There are so many people out there who do not have children, who are ready to adopt children. And you don't have any right to kill a person. Even if it's mother, we cannot say motherhood is. We have seen parents killing children, born babies. So we cannot say that.
Okay, Jiten, you can continue.
Again, you skip the question of mine that which life is more important, baby or mother, but still again going on. But how can you say that bear a baby that the mother doesn't want for 10 months, then give to hatchery? This is a materialist thing to make sure that carry for 10 months because she doesn't even want that. Why should he? Why should she do that? Why should the parents do that? Because she doesn't even want her baby. And do you think that baby will be born? Absolutely not. It will not be born. If it comes out to the world, then only it will go to the hatchery. And again, the term hatchery, it is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. Please don't use that.
Why is it absolutely ridiculous? There are so many abandoned children. They are given so many care and they are given the proper maintenance in baby hatches. Why do you think it's absurd?
It is actually the end process of this kind of a discrimination and the social force that people face because they are end up in not getting aborted and getting pregnancy and giving.
You are saying there is no
my time. So you are giving your time. It's my time. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
Jiten, you can hold on. Nandana can speak.
So you are saying that there is no need of baby hatches in our country. You are saying it's completely absurd and we don't need baby hatches in our country.
It's actually putting your words in my mouth. It is not. I didn't say that hatches are not necessary. It is actually again.
Just a minute. Jiten, please continue.
Yeah, I'm again starting from the first. Please check on the timer.
No.
So, yeah. don't put your words in my mouth. I didn't say hatcheries are to be demolished or something like that. It is actually the end process of a cruel thing, that is the girls are forced to get pregnant. Okay, it is actually the end process. Okay, but this is why if the freedom of giving birth or abortion is given to the parents, then what is the necessity of a hatchery? That is where we have to lend the
Okay, your time is up.
Yeah, we will finish it with Nandana replying. Yeah, please.
He's saying it's absurd, as well as he says he didn't say to demolish baby hatches. Baby hatches are really helpful, and it is indeed an essential factor in our country. And those people who do not want to raise a child, see, a parent doesn't want a child. That's why she goes to opts for abortion. So she doesn't want it clearly. So just give birth to and give people who are ready to adopt it.
How can she give birth for? How can she wait for 10 months? How can she wait for 10 months? Because
No, not now. Yeah, it's time.
So now it's turn code. So chess number 118. Are you ready, Nandana?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can start now.
So giving birth to a child is an individual's personal opinion and its personal choice. As well as we know, being pregnant and giving birth to a child is it's not an easy task. It causes post-delivery depression as well as many drastic changes in a female body. So it may also affect her future sexual pleasure also. So it's her choice if she wants to give birth to a child and have the consequences or not.
Okay, Nandana, Jitin, you can continue.
we are living in a place where marital rape is not even considered as a rape. And how do you think that it can be addressed? Okay, yes, abortion should be there. And again, rather than going for abortion, the primary thing that should be given is education and correct perspective of how to get pregnant and when to get pregnant. This is actually sole thing that should be imbibed to the couples. Rather than saying abortion and pro-life is actually a sole justice or sole choice of a woman. I think it is again irrefutably a debatable thing that I have just said. Okay, because even considering the states around India and all the world, this cannot be illegalized around the globe.
In India, you said in India where
no, that was 1 minute each. Yeah, 1 minute each. So now we'll have the cross debate. But before that, I'll just tell you, I hope Nandana is speaking for the motion right now, which is pro-choice.
Yes.
Yeah, so women should be entitled to their rights of abortion, right? So that's pro-choice, and Jitin is pro-life. All right. So it's not about your choice; it's about the life. That's what you're arguing about, right? So let's speak. Okay.
Okay. So are you ready?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Nandana, you can start.
Like I say, you said that even marital rape is not a crime. It's not something bad in our country. Like we don't consider it as a big problem. In such a country itself, we are giving so much emphasis and importance to concepts like virginity and something like that. If one has a baby before marriage, a consensual intercourse and had a baby before marriage, doesn't she have the right to go and abort it and secure her future?
Securing her future by destroying another life. How is her future secured? It's actually not securing. It is actually pushing her to mental traumas and again after abortion sicknesses and all. So how can it be a better future? Absolutely is not a better future. And again, the right of an individual, even as it is said in the medical books, fetus is a life. And again, you are pushing that life and you're securing your future. That is actually what we call as introverting to themselves.
It's I can talk, right? It's medically proven that before 24 weeks, a baby cannot feel anything. A fetus cannot feel anything. So it's not a cruelty or something like that. It's just a simple procedure as it is, and it's not a cruelty. It's medically proven.
And again, being a student of biology, I can assure that a baby is born by fertilization and a zygote can be considered as life because in zygote, the cells are called stem cells and the stem cells have the potency to give to any type of cells. That means that even a cell is considered as a life. Bacteria is a single cell, it is a life. Virus is a single cell, it is a life. So your point is actually, again, it cannot be understandable, it cannot be taken in, because each and every cell is a life.
Okay,
So
Nandana,
we should consider as a life.
You can stay.
Okay, I accept that they are cells which have the capability to reproduce, but I said it cannot feel any pain or any sorts of things like that.
Okay, do you think plants are life? Do you think that because they can't feel? Do you think they doesn't have a life in them?
Nandana, it's time for Jidin to speak.
I'm so sorry, Jidin. So sorry.
Yeah. So again, my point is that it just seems that if you hurt something, if you cut down a plant, it doesn't show a response like physically. Does it mean that it doesn't feel anything? It's the same comes to the fetus who's below 24 months old. It doesn't even expressing. It is not even expressing physiologically or psychologically. But how can you see that it doesn't feel? It is actually absurd. Again, a virus, single cell virus do have its own physiological responses against a drug. That is actually a life. How a life responds to it.
I didn't say plants can't feel, or I didn't say plants do not live. They can feel. I said fetus before 24 months, and it's not what I said. It's medically proven. It's not a theory that I came with. It's medically proven that before 24 weeks, see, before the abortion law was implemented, like people can report any time they want. It was legal that one could abort a child before 24 weeks. It applies to the same phenomena what I have just said.
Okay, Jidin, you can continue.
Yeah, biology is a science of exception. So the thing you said medically proven is not actually, it may be considered as a kind of a thesis, because we lived in a period when women are considered to be the sole responsibility of the gender, but it is true that men are the right. So it is actually a exception. Don't actually we just stick to our intuitions and ethics.
Okay, Nandana, you can counter to this.
You think we live in a society where women are responsible for raising a child or growing up?
No, actually, I said women were actually, according to the chromosomes, actually men are responsible. So I said women were actually in the past and still now.
Yes.
I didn't really understand. Really understand. You said something like chromosome. What was it doing?
If I get
very briefly in a statement, give your answer.
Yes. So you are actually maybe similar to the fact that women, if women give birth to boy or girl, the problem is with her. But according to biology, according to genetics, it is actually the men are responsible. Men have X and Y chromosomes, and he is actually responsible for the gender of the baby. Okay, and medical science. See, actually, the thing is, the previous medical science was taught, but actually given the idea that women are responsible.
I didn't say anything about gender, or I didn't say anything about that. I just said you said that we are living in a society where women are responsible for growing up a child, etc. That's why I asked. I said you
can't depend upon the science researchers as it is actually flexible.
Hold on, actually the time is up.
I think both of you should hold on. The time is up. Yeah. Okay. Okay. My co-judge would kindly give you the questions.
Okay. So, Jidin, the question for you is from Anu. I think you can read the question when I read it for you.
Yeah.
Shouldn't choice be given to a pregnant woman who is considering a divorce? As it raises several questions like the future of the child to be born, the capability of the woman to raise the child, etc. So what do you say in such scenarios? Do you support abortion?
The thing is, the background story or the scenario to be considered. Why is she actually want an abortion? This is just because she had an unprotected sex. That has to be considered. If it is just because of cash unprotected sex, that has to be legally terminated. That means legally banned. She has to be legally banned from aborting. But if it actually have a deteriorating effect in her health, because giving birth to a baby really costs a life, then that should be considered legally, because there are cases in India itself, because in Canada that abortion is legally banned. Therefore, Indian government actually ambulanced the lady from Canada to India just because her pregnancy leads to her death. That has been confirmed. Therefore, I strongly believe that there should
Jidin, your time is up.
Considered. Yeah.
Sorry, Jidin, can you just please emphasize on the last point you have said? I didn't heard that. I'm sorry. Can you just repeat it for me?
Yeah. Actually, I strongly see that the scenario why the girl or the women wanted to get aborted should be considered. because different countries have their own laws and their own perspectives. But the general aspect is thought we, according to researchers, the general aspect is thought we, even the UN consider that the aspect why it should be aborted or that kind of thing should be considered.
Okay. Thank you, Jitan. And now over to you, Nandana. The question is, I think the question. Wait. Okay, Anaga. That was the question for Jitan, but let me ask it for you. Can you value life? It can't be compared. So I just ignore the second part of the question. But I think the synopsis of the question was, don't you think the life of a fetus is as important as that of a mother? So do you value life? In that case, do you prefer abortion or you don't prefer abortion? So what's your take on that?
The value of life of a fetus is always important, but if a mother can't raise it in a necessary way, a child should be raised. Like if she is not able to provide food for the child, or if she has no financial security to look after the child, what is the point of giving birth to a child? So of course there is value for life, but we are helpless in such situations. So I'll go with the lady, because if she wants to abort it, she can definitely abort it.
Okay, so it's the pro-choice. You prefer pro-choice over pro-life. Okay. Okay, thank you, Nandana. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So judges, we came to end of the section. Would you like to say any instructions about the report writing?
Yeah, I
would
think
like to say, thank you. First of all, I would like to, in fact, congratulate all of you. I mean, each and every one of you, because it gives a lot of pleasure. It gives a lot of happiness to know that the upcoming generation is a generation which is deeply rooted in the ideals of gender equality. People who can definitely consider every other person an equal and unique, entitled to same kind of similar rights. So it is definitely beautiful. It was such a wonderful time. I did not quite understand the couple of hours which did pass by, because it was beautiful listening to you all. I hope the experience was also mutual. So I would like to tell you a couple of ideas regarding the next few sessions we would have. One, definitely, as you all know, is report writing. Now that we've come to the end of a second session together, I would want suggestions from you, but however, it's like you will have to prepare a report of all the activities that we had today, which is you will definitely have your elocution session and we just have the extempore debate session. So it is about writing a report of, let's say, about 2 pages, handwritten preferably. So 2 pages you can definitely write, and about the session we had, possibly the things we discussed, or what is your takeaway. So in a general manner as to how you write a formal report, that's how you will have it. We'll possibly send the mail ID in the group, but however, the report is something that you'll have to give us today itself. So I would like to have a word from you as to how many hours will you want to write a report of, let's say, 2 pages comprising of all that we had today. Will you tell me? Tonight, 12. Okay, can you make it slightly earlier?
That's too long, right?
Yeah, that's too long, Anubhav. Because
8?
Because we have the
kind of like 8.
Yeah, I think 8 would be fine. Is 8 fine for you all? Exams, okay. All right. So, but
some students are having university exams on Monday. So
is that so? Okay. What kind of an arrangement can you make about it? Because this the report part of it is common to all the committees, right? So you will have to write this.
Just tell him some time would be 10 maybe.
Okay. Would 10 be fine for my co-judge and the coordinators? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think 10 is okay. I think if it's fine for everybody, let's go with 10.
Yeah. Are all the participants okay with 10?
Yeah.
10. 10, I think, is 6 hours from now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so in 6 hours time, maybe you can write 2 pages. I know definitely how stressful exams can be, but definitely it would be nice if you will write 2 pages. Okay, so that is a report, and I hope the mail ID will be attached, will be given to you. Yeah, Aisha, please.
Ma'am, should it be written compulsory or typing be fine? because at times, when we may take the photo and send, what if the handwriting is not understandable for you?
Okay. In that case, but make sure the number of words and the amount really comes, quite comparable. Like if somebody writes and, they might comprise the whole thing which has come, but if you just equate it to about 250 words or something on the type sheet, I think it would still be too small, right? So typing part of it is okay, but make sure you're touching all the areas, okay? Make sure you have a productive idea of what was happening today.
Yeah, ma'am. So is inaugural address also, it's also needed to be included, right? Inaugural ceremony.
Inaugural, I don't think the inaugural needs to come in. We are just concerned with what we did, the discussion of the committee, definitely the first elocution part that we've had and then the extraordinary debate. Considering the elocution, definitely the sessions will be uploaded in YouTube. So in any case, if you really did miss out a couple of elocutions or you missed out a couple of speeches or debates, it would be fine if you can definitely check the YouTube and hear them. All right? You can have a gist of what was happening in case you missed a couple of them. Right?
Ma'am, is there any particular format like?
No. What format do we really follow for a report? A formal one? That's enough. There's nothing in addition to that. Just what we usually do for a report writing.
Ma'am, should we go in depth or just like a gist of everything that has happened till now?
I don't think you have to go in depth about it because we just want 2 pages. I mean to say, when you write things down, like for example, a person with a moderate handwriting could definitely write definitely a summary of what happened in the committee could definitely be written, right? So you did not go in depth because you definitely know when you look into the extraordinary debates that we've just had, those topics are really huge, right? You've understood that. So it would be difficult when you try to go in depth with every topic. You may not stand within the page limit, all right? So you can definitely possibly mention a couple of lines or so about each. That's fine.
Okay, ma'am. So what about tomorrow's event also?
Yeah, tomorrow our major event is group discussion. Okay, so for group discussion, what we have is we are not going to divide it into any teams as usually we see in a group discussion. We have one team for the motion, another team against the motion. But we are going to have a very healthy discussion on one of those topics, which will be given to you again today evening. In a couple of hours, you'll be informed about what topic do you have for group discussion tomorrow, and the timing and all those things will be informed. But however, in group discussion, what we do is, I think